Hi, everybody. I hope you're all doing great. We're getting ready to move into May. I'm going to be doing the May astrology separate. Today, I want to just focus on Pluto. Pluto's going to be going retrograde the beginning of May all the way through October. It's going to be sextiling Neptune and opposing Mars in that retrograde. So at that retrograde to the opposition of Mars is going to be hanging out until about May 18th. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. You're going to start to feel it build. A lot of you are going to start to feel it build. So first, I'm going to talk about what Pluto retrograde is, what it means to have it opposing Mars. I'm going to break it out into each of the signs and we're going to discuss. So if you see me looking away, I'm just looking at a chart that I have situated here on my screen. But let's discuss Pluto, right? I mean, we've been talking a lot about Pluto. By the way, before I forget, I guess I always forget. I am running my second. I usually run two. Past couple of years, I've been running two. My second flash sale, I am going to extend this to 2 weeks because a lot of you asked me, please make it more than a week. I understand, like, not everybody could just stop what they're doing and book a reading, but this is a flash sale for the big kahuna of my readings, right? It's the full birth chart. It's a full analysis. It's the report, which usually comes in anywhere between 60 and 80 pages, depending on how many retrogrades you have, how many cusps you have, what's going on in your chart. And then I also, so I send that to you, but then I do a reading. We could do it either live or recorded, unpacking your birth chart, and then also adding your current astrology right now. Okay, so I do have that in at 50% off. It's indicated at the discounted rate already on this site, so you don't need to add a code or anything like that. I used to do that, and it was like craziness and, difficult. So now I just discount it already. It's there already for you to take advantage of. So if you've been thinking about learning more about yourself, your chart, and all of that through me, this would be a good opportunity to do that. Okay. Enough of that. By the way, my name is Jackie. For those of you who knew, I'm an evolutionary astrologer. I look at astrology through a very psychological lens. Okay. Pluto. We know Pluto is all about change and transformation. I feel like we've been talking about him forever, right? So he's finally in Aquarius. He's doing a lot of changing, especially as I've been saying, especially over this first year and a half to 2 year period. Pluto's going to be creating a lot of change especially depending on the area of life that he's focused on. So if you know your chart, you want to look at what house Pluto is transiting, what house Pluto is in your own birth chart. Look at your eighth house as well, and whatever house Scorpio is in, because Pluto is the modern ruler of Scorpio. So those four places are going to be very activated. Sometimes we have, like for example, Aries risings, and we always want to go according to our rising sign, guys, right? Always that first and foremost, right? When it comes to our birth chart, our rising sign drives those house placements to a lesser degree, but still pay attention for that sun placement as well, and to a much lesser degree, the moon. But some people, like for example, in Aries rising, will have Scorpio in the eighth house. So their Scorpio placement is the same as that, because Scorpio lives in the eighth house. So there's if somebody has their Scorpio in the eighth house and Scorpio is the landlord of the eighth house, then it's the same there. But not to confuse you, but you want to pay attention again where Pluto is transiting, where Pluto is in your birth chart, where Scorpio is in your birth chart, and whatever's going on in the eighth house of your chart. Those four are going to be very, very important over the rolling out of your life, especially over the next year and a half to 2 years. Okay. So that's just to give you a little bit of a heads up. But now that Pluto is retrograde, this is not an uncommon thing. Pluto is retrograde around 5 months every year. And during this time, Pluto typically, who's the power, he is the planet of transformation and power and subconscious, appears to move backwards in the sky from our perspective here on Earth, but he's not really going backwards, right? It's really this optical illusion. But astrologically, this is a period for all of us to do a lot of inner work, a lot of very deep transformative inner work, right? Not just thinking about stuff, but actually implementing some of the things that we know we've been needing to let go and change. Really encouraged to, it's a time period to reflect and review. And by the way, it's happening from May 4th all the way to October 19th. So it's about 5 months and 9 days or 6 days. I think it's 9 days. And again, not an uncommon thing, but it's coming up. And so expect this. Expect there to be a lot of deep, deep transformation. Now, within that 5 month period, we have other stuff going on, right? Saturn's going to be changing signs, which is going to start the end of May. Uranus is going to be changing signs, going from Taurus to Gemini at the end of July. So we have other things going on. Then Saturn's going to retrograde back into Pisces in September. So during that extension of that 5 months, a lot of other energies are going to be going on, but this is certainly going to be the most powerful. It's going to kind of be the foundation of what's going on. This is not a bad thing, guys. It's just something I want to give you a heads up on, because you are likely going to be feeling it pretty strongly, right? It's good when we understand what's going on. So any sort of reflection and reviewing that you have to go through, right? Delving into the subconscious, not being afraid to bring these hidden aspects of yourself out into the light of day to be looked at. This can involve revisiting past traumas for some of you, old emotional wounds, very deep-seated patterns as well. Those are always the best ones to work on, right? Because those create the most obvious change in our life, right? Really changing the way that we think about ourselves and the way that we think about things that have happened to us and for us, right? It's also a very good time to reclaim our personal power, right? Pluto retrograde does not want to hear anything from anyone that is trying to control us, right? And it's not that we're being difficult. None of us are going to be difficult. It's just we're going through so much on a very personal level that we're going to feel like we need a bit of space in order to do that changing that we need to do, because this energy is going to highlight where we have given our power away to people, or where we're even misusing our power. And it's just an excellent, excellent time period to reclaim that inner strength and establish much healthier boundaries if you guys are in a space where you feel like you need to do that. It's also a great time to release and transform. This transit absolutely facilitates the breakdown of old structures and patterns. I feel like I've been talking about this for a while, and it's just those that just no longer serve us, right? It's not serving us anymore. We tried to make something work over and over and over again. It's just not serving us. So it's time to change perspective, you know? It's such a potent time for letting go of toxic habits, toxic, nasty, messy relationships, beliefs even, and just in a way to pave like, I guess, a new road for some transformation and rebirth. Because remember, we are going through this rebirth right now, and we have to create space in order to allow the new to come in, which always means letting go of something that has been, right? And again, it's just an excellent time to do any kind, besides reflection, just shadow work, any kind of shadow work. It really does tend to bring us face to face with our shadow side, whether we like it or not, right? Because Pluto's so good at digging up the stuff that's stuck in our basement that we've been like pushing it down, like we don't want to look at it, right? Pluto retrograde is like, here, take a look at it once and for all. This is to help us, right? It's absolutely about confronting these aspects so that we can integrate them and just move forward in a better way towards greater wholeness, right? Just to be better people and a lot more of a whole, right? So that's generally speaking what Pluto retrograde is. Now, I am going to talk about it through the houses, but before we get into that, let's talk about this opposition to Mars, because when Pluto opposes Mars in astrology, it typically represents a powerful clash between two very intense forms. Mars, the planet of action, desire, and aggression, and then Pluto, which of course is the planet of transformation, control, and very deep psychological processing. So when we have these oppositions, it means that these planets are on opposite sides, right, of the zodiac wheel, which creates it's very necessary tension that calls for not only balance, but the balance has to come through confrontation. right? And Mars is always fresh path, new perspective. And Pluto's like, what do I have to let go of? And there's this tension between figuring out what do we need to let go of, what actually has control over us, and being able to look at these things and say, I'm not going to allow this anymore. So those power struggles and inner conflict and external confrontations can be happening in several ways. For some of us, it's going to be there's a very strong intensity of will, right? Where, because a lot of times this aspect can create a very intense drive to assert yourself, sometimes to the point of obsession, where you become very sort of tunnel vision about what it is that you want in a relationship, in a job, whatever it is. And, you or others, right, might try to dominate or resist being dominated the situation. So you may be like, I'm going to hold on to this so tight, I'm not going to let anybody else control it. Only I'm the one who can make decisions. I have to be the one to do this, right? You just want to pay attention to if you are doing that. Because again, we are going to be having some conflict and confrontation. That's a healthy part of this opposition. It can show up, yes, of course, as a fight, as an argument, as passive aggressive behavior. Why? Because there is this push-pull between these energies, wanting to act, Mars, and needing to control or be in control, Pluto, act, control, act, control. It's like, going to be battling it out. Also, for a lot of us, Pluto is very, very sexual. Also is Mars, but to a little bit of a lesser degree. But Pluto does rule intimacy right in that eighth house. Like that action and the intensity of it. So, with the Pluto Mars aspect, this could bring very strong sexual energy, sometimes linked with themes to power and even control, right? Wanting to control a situation through those kinds of acts, or using sex as a tool for other things, using it as to facilitate something as well, right? To try to gain control over a situation. So you just want to watch out for that tendency. And also we have this dynamic between repression and explosion, right? Because if anger or desire is suppressed, right? So if we try to push down our Pluto, it might eventually erupt, right? And what represents eruption but Mars, sometimes very destructively, right? So we want to pay attention when we're talking, when we're going through the houses. We want to make sure that we're paying attention to those oppositions, okay? But it's intense period of change and conflict, willpower versus endurance. But more than anything, in a very positive way, it's such a good energy to face fears, unpack past traumas, and create the very Martian type of, new beginning, fresh path, letting go. Because with the Pluto retrograde, it's going to be like, no, 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 I can't let go of that. No, 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 no. But what if, what if, what if? And sometimes we don't even realize what we're holding on to that's keeping us stuck. Time period like this is a point where it's going to be like, oh, suddenly we start to see things about ourselves. But you just want to be careful of how anger is expressed and how anger is repressed. Communication is really a good way to go, right? Communicating about things so positive right now. But this is definitely deep territory. I mean, there's no question about it. It's very slow burning. It's like this internalized power struggle that you're going to be feeling. And I want to be very clear, especially the first 3 weeks of May. The first 3 weeks of May, you're going to be feeling this. So if you feel like you're being very reactive because of these energies that I'm talking about, try your very best to just sort of chill and ride it out until the end of May, is it's not going to last. It's not. On that 18th, that's when Mars is going to go into that. What is it? It's going to go from 13 to 14 degrees. So it'll officially be out of that 10-degree conversation with that 3-degree Pluto that's going to be opposite on the other side of the wheel. Okay. I hope I'm not confusing anybody, but just know that like once the 19th comes, that's when you're going to be sort of out of that sticky kind of territory. But you want to be prepared the first 3 weeks, old wounds around anger and control and having agency or not over your own life, right? Especially like stuff that you thought you just got over, that you were past. You were were done with that relationship. You were over that family argument. That thing was done already. I found peace with it. And suddenly it's like, whoa, why is that bothering me all of a sudden? Where you have a dream, depending on the placement, or, you hear a song, you smell something, you run into somebody, or just something happens where you're remembering these things differently. There can be a lot of frustration indicated here, having to do with your inner blocks, where it's like, man, I want to get out of my own way. Why do I keep sticking myself in this space? You want to move forward, Mars, right? But that's something hidden, maybe that subconscious energy, which is very Pluto retrograde, could be pulling you back. And that's not by mistake. It's like something needs to be cleaned up on aisle 9 when it comes to how it is that you're honestly processing something that you thought you were past and thought you were over. There might be some scraggly kind of like end cap that needs to be wrapped up. You may be confronting your own shadow side. Please exercise a boatload of grace with yourself, as there's no reason not to. There's no value in beating yourself up, guys. There's no, oh, why did I do that? Or why do I always do this? Or why do I always open myself up to these crazy energies? Because you have to learn lessons. That's why. There's nothing wrong with you. You're perfect. Okay? You just had to learn some lessons. And this is going to be a little season, though, especially these first 3 weeks of May with this Pluto retrograde opposing Mars, where a lot is going to be coming up. You just don't want to beat yourself up, because remember, Mars is a planet of war. And when he retrogrades Pluto retrograde, when he opposes Pluto retrograde, we can have Cold War on ourselves, right? We can be really, really rough on ourselves. So we want to be very careful to ourselves, but at the same time, we also want to be very careful that we're not inciting any sort of passive aggressive behavior in our relationships. Just watch out for power struggles. And if you feel like you're dealing with somebody who is acting that way, try your very, very best to just rise above the situation. Just understand this is so not going to last a long time, but it's going to be very real in our energy for the first 3 weeks. Okay. So all that being said, let's talk about this Pluto. Let's just talk about this Pluto retrograde first of all, starting with our Aries friends. We're going to talk about, again, Pluto retrograde in the house that's going to be impacting the rising signs, guys. We're going to be going according to the rising signs. Also listen for your sun, but it will be to a lesser degree. So you want to listen to that second. Okay, second to that. But let's get started on our Aries friends. So Aries, yeah, I mean, you have Pluto happening in your 11th house, right? So that 11th house, that retrograde energy in the 11th house, friends, goals and gains, group think, group activities, very connected to technology, advances in science, advances in medicine, any sort of humanitarian efforts, absolutely going to be a thing here. But this is going to be a very deep reevaluation of how you present yourself to the world, your personal power, issues having to do with your autonomy when it comes to connecting to people. You're going to be really kind of considering your particular energy out there, right, to people in the world, right, that you're absolutely dealing with. There could be some shifts within your friendships, social groups, a shift in your aspirations for the future. You might reevaluate your connections and your role within the collective. You might be reassessing your relationship to older siblings. Aside from friends, because 11th house is also older siblings, stepchildren, grandchildren, daughter-in-law, son-in-law. So any of the people there. But again, this idea of it opposing that Mars energy in the 5th house of children, right? So there could be, depending, I'm just giving this as an example, this opposition where if you have a child who is, let's just say they're committed to somebody, maybe they're married. That 11th house, for example, would be a daughter-in-law, and that 5th house would be, for example, your son and your son. And that would be, like in that opposition. So there could be some difficult energies that you need to work out having to do with an in-law, or could have to do some sort of challenging energy having to do with a stepchild, a grandchild, right? An older sibling, if it's connected to a situation that manifested in childhood that's resurfacing now. This fifth house is also childhood. But the fifth house is also entrepreneurial endeavors, and the 11th house has to do with goals and gains as well. So this opposition may be like, should I start this business or shouldn't I? Should I really kind of, um, kind of get get really clear on what I want to do, what I want to do having to do with the business? Um, anything like that, right? Because a lot of you may be thinking this, what do I want to close up my business? Do I want to start a business, right? But there is going to be this idea of, do I have agency over my life? And dealing with this opposition. Now it is going to be sextiling. Neptune is at 1 degree in your first house. So that first house, um, obviously it's the first house, your first house of self, the path that you're walking on. So it's perfectly natural and very on brand for you to be like dreaming about the future, thinking about what's possible. But you want to just make sure that you're staying based in reality right now, especially during the first 3 weeks when it is opposing Mars while it's sextiling this Neptune energy. Okay. But besides that, I think this is going to be a really good energy to sort of figure out where your life is going and what you see going on in your life over the next 5 years. In that way, it can be really, really good. Okay, my friend. So I hope that was helpful in some way. See you guys next time. All right, moving on to our Taurus friends. So Taurus risings. Now, you guys have Pluto retrograde in your 10th house of career, public reputation, standing in the world, your ultimate status of your greatest relationships, where it is that you plan on taking your life. It is also the house of government, and it is the manifestation of mother energy as well. But you can expect during this Pluto retrograde energy transformation in your career, your public image, authority figures, and your life direction, you might face some challenges having to do with your status, redefining your ambitions, as well as how you exert authority. Now, this is going to be opposing that Mars energy in the fourth house of home, property, real estate, family, right? Your inner base of operation, your security. Now, it is sextiling Neptune, which is in your 12th house. The 12th house of the hidden. This is very connected to behind the scenes. It represents sleep, but also your dreams. What are you actually dreaming about? What are you dreaming about as being possible? You just want to make sure that you're keeping both feet on the ground and that you are based in what's actually going on in your life rather than what's possible. I mean, there's nothing wrong with dreaming, but you just want to make sure, especially during this Mars opposition, that when you're thinking about your emotional security and when you're thinking about your home environment, people you live with, right? Any sort of issue that's connected to situations regarding your first family, right? That's where the tension could be between like work and home, right? Between emotional security and where it is that you want to go. But you have this that Neptune sextile sort of calling you. He's very seductive, right, in this sextile, because he's all about like, oh, but think about what's possible, which is awesome. But we also have to balance that out. Again, balance, or at the opposition of where you're actually at right now in your life as well, right? So just being very realistic, but expect some of those changes, especially during Pluto retrograde periods are super powerful. So again, all the way through October 19th, it is going to be retrograde from May 4th until October 19th in that 10th house, but only until May 18th will it be opposing this Mars energy. So remember, it could be a little stressful while it's opposing everything having to do with home, property, real estate, inner base of operations, and your emotional security. Okay, guys, so I hope that was helpful. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Okay, Gem, you guys are up, and it's all about the ninth house for you. Pluto retrograde is in the ninth house, and it's opposing Mars in Leo in the third house. Okay, so Pluto energy in the ninth house. This is absolutely going to be a 5+ month, right? 5 months and 9 days to be exact. A period of reevaluating your beliefs, your philosophy. There could be some reevaluation of anything connected to higher education, right? There be some sort of reeval, right? Maybe you're gonna thinking about changing your major, changing departments if you work in higher ed, changing the way that you do higher ed, maybe thinking of leaving or joining higher ed, anything having to do with travel aspirations as well. You might question your worldview and seek a much deeper understanding of truth. And what is truth, right? Truth is what is, right? And as everybody's like, oh, well, I have to live my truth. I have to do, well, truth is actually, reality, right? And when it's in the ninth house, which is the house of expansion and truth, and our ability to expand ourselves to the point of what we're meant to grow into in our life, whether it's through higher mindedness, philosophy, and religion, organized or otherwise, learning through travel, learning through reading, learning through visits to museums, as basic as that sounds. This is also the house of publishing and marketing and advertising and getting something out there to the world as a way of being able to expand and grow yourself. You're really going to be getting very poked at to publish, to market, to advertise, to grow, to expand, to really seek what it is that your truth is. So your truth might be that, you've been busying yourself with 12 other things in your life, but you really want to be a writer, or you really want to be a teacher, or you really want to get more involved in politics, also ninth house, or you really want to live somewhere else, you want to live abroad. Right? These are all ninth house things. The ninth house is a very large thing, but this is what's going on in that ninth house, yet it's opposing that third house of communication, of your neighbors in your neighborhood, of basic learning, right? So you could be experiencing a situation where, like, yes, I want to expand, I want to grow, but that opposition with Mars in the third, it's like, yeah, 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 okay, good. But you have to finish writing it, or you have to teach yourself. You have to get schooled in that technique or that methodology, or you have to make the connections. Those are all very third house things, right? So you have that strong desire in the ninth house, and with it sextiling to Neptune in the 11th house of goals and gains and where you see your life in the next 5 to 10 years, the dreams are there, but you have to go deep and say, okay, let me pull it back and say, okay, cool. That's where I want to see myself, but I understand I have to pull it back a little bit, and I have some things I need to learn. Basic grassroots stuff, guys. This doesn't mean you're going back to school. I mean, if you want to go back to school, you can with Pluto in there, especially retrograde. Some of you may decide to do that, but certainly not necessary. It's more like a third house thing, which is like taking a workshop, teaching yourself something, even it's even connected to like onboarding, right? On having to do with a new position, right? Anything like that, needing to learn some new things. So expect those things to come up for you guys this month, okay? I mean, it's going to be in there again until October, but that opposition again is going to be happening until May 18th. So you want to just expect that tension that's meant to better you and to push you, right, in a good direction. So I hope that was helpful, and I will see you guys next time. Okay, moving on to our Cancer friends. So Cancer, you have Pluto in the eighth house of intense transformation. This is very related to shared resources, intimacy, sex, death, rebirth. You might confront fears and taboos having to do with anything in that arena and really delve much deeper into aspects of connection and commitment, even commitment, right, is very connected in that eighth house. Now, the eighth house is also the house of divorce. It also rules any kind of legal situations that we're dealing with that have a dollar sign attached to it, anything like that. What else is the eighth house? Other people's money. It's inheritance. It's the stock market. It's insurance payouts. It's debt. It's taxes. It's other people's money. So I had to tell you, I mean, Pluto retrograde in the eighth could be awesome for paying off debt work, figuring out like structured settlements to things. Good. Like this could absolutely be good. Now, the opposition is that Mars energy in the second house, which is connected to the money you make from the work that you do. It's like it's the money that's in your bank account from what it is that you do. So having that Pluto retrograde in there with that Mars in the second, money is going to be a thing. It's going to be something that you're absolutely considering right now. So remember, it's like this very strong desire to go off in a certain direction, but then Pluto's like, hold on, control, control, right? So if you're moving into, for example, a new space of employment, and you may be, you definitely may be. You have Venus in the 10th, why not? You have Saturn is getting ready at the end of the month to move into that 10th house, and Saturn is in domicile in the 10th house, so that'll be really, really good for you. I'm going to speak more about that in a couple of days when I do the astrology for the month of May. But it's going to be the kind of thing where, you get a position and you're like, I really like how that sounds. It's sort of like really in alignment. It's going to have you working a lot, but you have to make sure that the money is right, Cancer, right? I mean, I understand we talk about this a lot with you guys that when it comes to work and you have to love what you do, you have to believe in it. You are not a sign that can just do something forever and say, oh, it's not who I am, it's what I do. No, no, you have to be emotionally connected and honestly believe in what it is that you do, right? And so that's really important, right? But you have to make sure that you're getting paid, right? For your worth. And so it's just got to be enough there, right? And so this opposition could create a situation where you get something, but Pluto in the eighth retrograde is going to be like, but is the salary enough? Because we got these bills over here to pay. We have stuff to do over here, right? So we just have to make sure that there's a balance. So that's if it has to do with money. But that second house is also very connected to your sense of self and self-esteem. And that eighth house is how you blend with other people. It's the balancing out of like, it is one of the oppositions of the me versus we kind of energy. And what is it that you believe in, you want for yourself versus what is it that perhaps a significant other or even a business partner or somebody other, right? Or even some sort of opportunity, employment opportunity is requiring of you, right? And so there's going to be this opposition. I just feel like for a lot of you, it's just going to be a little bit of like this curve that you have to go through for the 3 weeks in May. It's not a bit, this is not a bad thing. Please don't look at it as a bad thing. This is the discomfort is going to help you figure out what's right for you right now, okay? As far as a change that's going to be hitting, that's going to be coming up right now. So I want you to stay optimistic, glass half full all day long. All right, Cancer? So that's what I have for you. I'll see you in a few days when I do the astrology for the month of May. All right, take care, guys. Bye-bye. Okay, we have our Leo friend. So Leo, you have Pluto in the seventh house. So the seventh house is all about, this is going to be, it's partnerships, right? It's all kinds of partnerships. So it's deep examination, right? There's a lot of transformation going on for you guys in the seventh house, but deep examination of your partnerships, both romantic and business, issues of power, control, interdependence within relationship will likely be quite prominent. Now, this is going to be opposing your energy. Mars is in your sign in that first house. So there's going to be this little bit of a tug of war between your desire to sort of try something new, have this new experience, right? And this control of seventh house energy. So you could feel like an intimate partner, maybe your husband or your wife, they're very controlling right now or very much in need, or there is a need to be more present for your most committed relationships, for your job, for your boss, having to do with your energetic output at work. It's going to be a little disappointing. It will be. Okay, especially like around the 18th into the 19th, when we're sort of leaving this opposition, the stress is going to be the first 3 weeks. The reason I'm saying that is because the moon is going to be washing over this energy on the 18th and 19th, which brings vulnerability, which can bring a lot of emotion to a situation. Again, this is not a bad thing. It's something that needs to be looked at. Again, deep examination of those partnerships. Now, your marriage might be totally fine. It doesn't have to be, or your romantic relationship. This could be a situation that comes up with your boss, or it might not even be with your boss and your significant other. Maybe it's just you and your energetic output at work, and you saying, do I still want to do this? I have to really examine this. I want to make some pragmatic changes in my life. And this could be because of other changes that are going on in your energy as well. Okay. Now that Neptune is sextiling in the ninth house of expansion, of truth. And Neptune in the ninth is lovely, actually, because Neptune rules our dreams and our fantasies. He can be a little confusing. He can create a little bit of a mysterious veil around things. But in the ninth house, there could be dreams about traveling, about publishing, about growing yourself, about going back to school. These are all ninth house things. So, very important to understand that Neptune impact on this, because Neptune can be very seductive when it comes to our need to control something. And then Mars is there like, hold on a second. I need to be the voice of reason. Meanwhile, Mars at the end of the day is like the belligerent 19-year-old who wants to do whatever the hell he wants. So it's like, who's in charge? You know what I'm saying? Because these energies are going to be kind of back and forth, back and forth. But Mars is always going to be fighting for our highest good, right? And so with that Mars in the first house in Leo, it's like your energy is going to be like fighting for your joy, your happiness, right? Because that's what Mars does in Leo. He fights for us. He fights for us to be happy, to be joyful, to be able to tap into that inner child, right? And there can be, I do want to say, there can even be, this is getting super specific, but there can be some sort of arguments, challenges, or if it's not even an argument, there just could be some sort of discordant energy between you and a significant other pertaining to children, the idea of children. Okay. This could certainly happen, especially like mm, second into the third week of May. Okay. So just something to keep in mind. But I do not want you to view this as a bad thing. I want to just give you a heads up, right? Just because it's just going to be for that first few weeks of May. It's not going to be like this for the rest of the Pluto retrograde, but it's important to understand the beginning of this transit. And I will see you guys in a few days when I do the full astrology for the month of April. Thanks for hanging with me. See you guys next time. Okay, Virgo. So let's talk about Pluto in the sixth house for you. This is a focus on transforming your daily routines, your work habit, your health, your service to others. Okay. You might confront power struggles in the workplace or address underlying health issues that might be a brewing right now. Um, and I've been working with a lot of you guys, a lot of Virgo risings privately, and we are addressing, and a lot of you are reporting to me that you are going to the doctor and you are realizing that you do have autoimmune issues starting Pluto in Aquarius and any of the health houses, or conjuncting any of the health asteroids like Hygeia, anything depending on how it's situating your Pisces and or Neptune energy, these can manifest as underlying health issues. Can it be autoimmune? Well, yes, it can, because um, Aquarius does rule autoimmune, but it also rules things that are a little out of the box, a little different. You're right. It does depend on what's going on in your personal chart. But I do want to really, really encourage you guys, if you're feeling a little something, something is off, please make sure you're getting your health checked out. Now, as far as the workplace or as far as just your general responsibilities, this can absolutely be something that you're dealing with. Now, that Mars opposition is in the 12th house. Now, the 12th house, the natural landlord of the 12th house is Pisces, which is the sign of the nurse. It's being unconditionally loving and giving, right? But Mars is that warrior energy in the house of being loving and giving. So you can find yourself in a situation where you're needing to be there, very loving and giving. And I know this sounds messed up, and it's not at all. But it's like you're in this situation where you have to really be there for someone in your life. And it's not that you don't want to be there for them, but you have so much other stuff going on that it's just like, wow, this is just something so on top of everything else. So this can absolutely be an experience that a lot of you are dealing with. Others of you, it has nothing to do with helping other people out. And that Mars opposition in Leo could be you sort of unpacking and needing to walk back some sort of self-sabotaging behavior that you might be practicing that's just simply not serving your health. It's just simply not. Okay. So that it could certainly be there. We always, whenever we have this opposition to our Leo energy does represent our children with Mars, we do want to make sure that we're not having these crazy arguments with our kids, especially if we feel like our kids are not making right choices, or we would not really maybe do what they were doing if we were in their position. You know what I mean? So you just want to pick your battles here, Virgos. For those of you who are parents, pick your battles, pick your battles, pick your battles. Okay. At least for the first few weeks of May. I do suspect these things have been kind of cooking up to a particular point. But lots of changes are going to be starting May, June, July, lots of changes. And we're not the only ones, right? Everyone else in our life, everyone's going to be making some big, profound changes as well, or at least we should if we're working with the energy. Now that Neptune energy in the eighth house does have it's in a sextile, which is a really nice positioning. Neptune has to do with being again that unconditional loving and giving, but it is also very connected to disease and disease. Neptune does rule disease and disease. And in the eighth house of any of the sexual organs, very connected to, it's, you know, you have the sign of Aries in there. So it could be anything having to do with the physical body, anything at all, especially anything having to do with like from the neck up. This Aries does rule the head. This Pluto sextile there could indicate that there's some sort of like change that's going on, right? If it is connected to your health, but that it's supported because it's in a sextile for you to find out and be able to do something about it, okay? And it's helpful to have like the Saturn and Pisces in the seventh house of our doctors with the North Node in Pisces. I don't want to get off on a tangent, but there's supportive energies nonetheless. If you find out that something is cooking with your health, I do want to say that. Also being very pragmatic about your finances moving forward. Neptune in that space, while he's confusing, just being able to kind of come up with new ways of maximizing your resources. This is a really good thing to do as well. Yeah, I'm just looking to see. I feel like I can keep talking for you guys. I feel like there's a lot to talk about here. But I am going to end it there. I'm going to discuss more when I do the full forecast for the month of May. I should get to that by the end of the week. But I do hope that was helpful in some way, and I will see you guys next time. Okay, so Libra, Libra, Libra. So you guys have Pluto in the fifth house. This is going to be all about transformation in your creative expression, romance, children, sources of joy, any sort of issues around power dynamics in relationships, power dynamics having anything to do with children, or creative blocks can come up in this particular energy. Now, it is opposing the 11th house, excuse me, where that Mars is. 11th house, again, has to do with stepchildren, grandchildren, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, older siblings, friends, group work, goals and gains, what your life is going to be looking like in a few years, right? And just where it is that you want to go. It's the future. Right? So we have this push-pull between the future and something that you're doing pragmatically now, having to do with either children, some sort of work situation, because it's the house of entrepreneurial efforts, monetizable talents, your creativity, your ability to take a chance on something, and just your general joy and happiness. So there really is going to be this sort of face off with what do you really need and what do you really want to be happy, right? Children or entrepreneurial efforts are certainly going to factor into this in one way or another. Okay. One of those. Yeah, obviously it's going to depend on these general messages. So it depends on what else is going on in your chart. But the sextile to Neptune in the seventh house of marriage, of contracts, whether it's intimate or whether it's business, your energetic output at work. This can even have to do with, doctors. Very nice connection to doctors, if that's the case. Getting a lot of help from doctors could certainly be that, if that is a particular situation. There could be some sort of, really trying to dream of another way of executing your day-to-day work environment. So some of you may be seriously thinking about opening a business, expanding your business, thinking about, kind of like the white picket fence and a really happy marriage, having to do with children and partner and, allowing yourself to go there, allowing yourself to dream. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a beautiful thing, right? Remember, with that Mars in there, 11th house has to do with like science and technology and the future and goals and gains. Wherever Mars is sprinkling a little bit of like reality there. And so we want to just make sure that we're keeping both feet on the floor. Very nice, very dreamy energy. The moon is washing over it around like the 18th into the 19th, as soon as this opposition between Pluto and Mars sort of goes into separation. So it could be some sort of like disappointment around then. But I don't want you to get too down about it, because this is like just like a necessary step in something, and things are going to become a lot more positive following that. Okay, my friends. So that is what I have for you. I hope that was helpful. I'll see you in a few days when I do the astrology for the month, the full month of May. All right, take care, guys. Okay, so now we have our Scorpio friends. So Scorpio, you have Pluto retrograde in your fourth house of home, property, real estate, emotional security. There are going to be deep shifts related to your home, your family, your roots, and your sense of belonging. You might explore, some of you, some family secrets, past conditioning, and being really honest with yourself about that, and redefine your personal foundations and what it is that you actually need to feel emotionally safe and secure in that space. Now, it is opposing Mars in Leo. Whenever we have Mars in Leo, we have to watch out that we're not arguing too much with our children. We have to be careful there, as it is in this opposition to the 10th house. 10th house is the manifestation of mother energy. So there could be some sort of like opposition, and maybe one of your children are trying to conceive right now, and there could be some challenges in that space. That could be the situation for some of you between the 4th house and 10th house opposition. But the 10th house is career, public reputation, standing in the world, the status of your most important relationships, and basically where it is that you see your life going, right? And Mars is very decisive. He understands what it is that he wants. He's just not too sure how to actually make it happen. He's got the courage to make it happen. He's got the confidence to make it happen, but he might not have all the players on his side. He might not have all the tools in his toolbox, and he might not be sure of the exact strategy. That's why he is a leadership energy. He's an ideas guy, but he doesn't have the power to fully implement things, right? He's got the energy and the wherewithal, but he doesn't always have the ability to create agency. And when it opposes that Pluto retrograde, this idea of needing power, you're going to really be wanting to feel very stable and secure, like especially emotionally. And you're going to be looking at your career, your most important relationships, the connection to your children, where is life going, and all of that. That's going to be a thing in this opposition for you. Now, the Neptune sextile goes into the sixth house. So I like the sextile into the sixth house of health, right? Neptune does rule disease and disease. It does, right? So there could be some sort of health situation, but it's in a sextile. So you're going to be having a good run having to do with your health, which is good. This will be a good run for you. However, it is still there. So you might be in a space of thinking, for me to have the best, for me to have the life that I really want, mentally, physically, and emotionally, a lot of you are going to be realizing, I need to move. Or I need to make some real changes in my living situation. Something's got to give. And then with the opposition to the 10th house, because I have to really be solid on like where my life is going. Do you know what I'm saying? And this can be very highlighted these first 3 weeks of May. So this is a good thing. This is not a bad thing. Okay, guys, glass half full all day long. That is what I have for you guys. A little bit of a brief interpretation, but I'm going to be going into, a longer read of the month of May in a few days. But I did want to just highlight and separate out this very, very important transit that's coming up. So I hope this was helpful for you guys, and I will see you next time. Okay, we have our Saggy friends next. So, Sag, you have Pluto in the third house, right? We've been talking about this. This retrograde energy is going to bring a period of intense introspection regarding your communication style, thought patterns, and how you learn, as well as how you process information. Issues with siblings or close neighbors can surface. So, third houses represent our siblings, our neighbors. It also represents our extended family, old friends as well. Um, but issues surrounding this. Now, the Mars energy opposing in the of ninth house has to do with publishing, marketing, advertising, getting some sort of project out there. The ninth house has to do with travel, long distance travel, has to do with higher mindedness, higher education. It has to do with politics and religion, organized or otherwise, right? So there can be careful. I mean, honestly, Sag, no conversations about politics, religion, like old friends, siblings, extended family. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Especially the first 3 weeks of May. If they engage you, just literally say, I love you. I don't want to argue. I don't want to have this conversation, okay? That's obviously is not going to be the deal with all of you. Some of you, it will. There could be some sort of challenges and some sort of stuckness when it comes to, because remember, Mars is fresh path, new perspective in the ninth house. It could be like wanting to get something out there, but it's opposing this third house, a very practical energy when it comes to business. So you may be trying to manifest some sort of business situation, and there's just like this stuckness. You feel like the person's not on the same page as you for the first 3 weeks of May. There could be some frustration surrounding any sort of negotiating, because third house, ninth house is the axis of negotiating. So it could be some sort of challenges there. There could be some sort of wonky communication with a lawyer, because ninth house is also our lawyers. Anything like that. I just hang in. Don't be too discouraged, okay? Don't get sucked down a rabbit hole. This is a transit to pull back. It's protecting you, right? It's going to slow something down, create some sort of crinkly energy for you to look at what needs to be looked at more closely, what needs to be ironed out so that you can move into this next phase a lot more easily, I guess we could say. Now that sextile to Neptune is in the fifth house. So Neptune in the fifth house has to do with children. Um, your joy, your happiness, creative projects. So you can absolutely be trying to manifest some sort of project, right? Get something out there to the world, and you're really dreaming about it, right? You're dreaming, you're allowing yourself to go there, which is great. Neptune in the fifth is very dreamy. It's beautiful, right? But it's very foggy as well. So you just want to make sure that you're keeping both feet on the floor, because Pluto sextiling Neptune that together can really have us wanting to control a narrative, because we're very focused on trying to manifest this dream sequence that we're creating for ourselves. And there's nothing wrong with that. And the likelihood of a version of that happening is quite high. But we do want to keep our feet on the floor with this opposition to Mars, right? Because Mars is all about, all right, yeah, I want to do that too, but how are we going to do that exactly? Do we have everything that we need? Everything. Are all the boxes checked? And that's where it's going to become very interesting when the crinkly energy, I'm kind of what I'm calling it, with the crinkly, the challenges, those first 3 weeks, I want you to revisit whatever it is that you're looking to do and make sure all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed, and everything is exactly the way that you would like it. and just exercise a lot of patience. And this, honestly, like once the 19th hits, it's going to be out of that 10-degree conversation and opposition, and things will start to roll out a little more quickly, I guess I could say. All right, my friend. So I hope that was helpful in some way. Check me out in a couple of days when I do the full astrology for the month of May. Until then, thanks for hanging with me. See you next time. Okay, so let's move on to our Capricorn friends. Capricorn, it's all about the second house for us, my friends, right? This is transformation around our values, our finances, our possessions, our sense of self-worth. We might even confront issues related to control and security in those areas and really want to take the bull by the horns and feel like we have lots of agency. I'm saying we. If you're new here, I am a Capricorn rising. I'm a Gemini sun, sixth house placement, which puts Capricorn in my first house. So yeah, that's what we're going to be looking at here. So Pluto in the second would put then that Mars energy in the eighth house. And the eighth house is shared resources. So you're really looking at your finances, opposition, this idea, opposition where that Mars energy is, Pluto where that second house energy is. Where is the control feeling, right? That feeling of needing to control when it comes to finances, shared resources, debt, taxes, other people's money, right? Having to do with money from a partner, right? You just being very focused on maybe not accruing debt right now or wanting to get in front of it could manifest in a very financial way because it's a very financial axis, but that's not the only thing it represents. It also represents our sense of self, our self-esteem, things that have great value and worth to us. Whereas that eighth house is about control, change, and transformation. It's intimacy, but it's also a blending of we, right? So you're going to really be looking at your values and the values of someone that you share something with. Now, it could be a significant other, but it could also be a business associate. This could be somebody who you're in a legal situation with, right? It's that tension between wanting to get in front of something, that Mars energy in the eighth house, right? But that Pluto is like feeling the need to control. Because with Pluto in the second house, there's a very strong desire for a very strong foundation, right? So you're getting very, very smart with your money, very smart with what you say yes to. This could all be very, very good. Now, also, what a lot of you could be dealing with having to do with health, because the second house is one of the health houses. It does rule our internal organs with the sign of Aquarius, right? Pluto in the sign of Aquarius in the second house. It could manifest as some sort of, unusual, out of the box diagnoses. So it doesn't mean that you're dying, and I've shared with you guys, as soon as Pluto went into the second house in Aquarius, I always had stellar health, stellar health, right? I'm going to be 58 in June and on June 6th and never anything. I got diagnosed with Hashimoto's. My husband is Sagittarius rising. When he had Pluto in Aquarius, he got diagnosed with GIST, which is a cancer of the stromal tissue. Um, Not everybody does, but a lot of people do. A lot of people who I work with, but like Hashimoto's, it's not going to impact my life expectancy. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's manageable if I do what I need to do. His cancer, thank goodness, is very treatable. These are treatable things, but yet they're things that do need to be dealt with. Now it is opposing Leo. So Leo does rule the heart. But the eighth house also rules like any sort of like reproductive organ. So, let's hope nothing pops up for us. But, knowing that I have this opposition, I made sure I made the right appointments. I am going to my gynecologist the third week in May. I'm doing all of that because I know the astrology, right? And so I want to be a step ahead. And if anything is brewing, I want to be able to act on it quickly instead of letting anything, fester, right? So I do recommend that for everyone, just as a way, right? I always say to be forewarned is to be forearmed. But I do have to say that I like this for getting very square with like money and what matters to you on an emotional level. Like it's a very clean kind of opposition. I just feel like for Capricorn risings where it's there's going to be like very clear boundaries that are going to be manifesting, you know. I mean, and being able to really honor those boundaries, which is good because by the end of the month we do have Saturn going into the fourth house, which is an angular house. I'll talk more about that next time. But yeah, so not a bad thing, but just a little heads up, okay? Hopefully this was helpful. I'll see you guys in a few days when I roll out the all of the astrology for the month of May. Okay? Take care, guys. Okay, so let's move to our Aquarius friends. So Aquarius, obviously, Pluto is in your first house. This is a deep reevaluation of your identity, your self-image, how you present yourself to the world. Issues of personal power as well as autonomy may arise. And it's opposing that Mars energy that's in Leo in the seventh house. So with that opposition, there could be some stress having to do with relationships and really trying to figure out what you even want from relationships. Really. Because you might be in a situation where you're with somebody, Mars in the seventh can absolutely make like a significant other be like, okay, really energized. Let's move on with life. Let's kind of take it to the next level. Let's go. And that Pluto in the first house is like, oh, but in doing that, am I going to sacrifice my agency? So there could be a real fear of sort of like letting go. And there could be a deep need for control and not wanting relationship to control you, or even maybe your relationship is perfectly fine and you're not even in one. That Mars energy, first of all, can bring a relationship in the seventh, but it could also be to a boss or bosses, or even your energetic output at work, right? Now, some of you just may be in a space where it's like, listen, I want to be in this relationship with you. I love you. Everything's fine. But I really have to throw my energy into work. I have to throw my energy into my next steps in life right now. And there's going to be a heightened focus having to do with the path that you're walking on, especially these first 3 weeks while it's opposing Mars. Now, in general, you're going to have Pluto in there for the next 20 years, right? We've talked about that. But it's not going to be that energy every day. It's not going to be like that, right? We've been talking about how whenever Pluto goes into a new sign, it's so slow. He hasn't been in Aquarius for almost 300 years. He's just in there a few months now at this point. He takes about a year and a half to 2 years to stretch his legs and to get comfortable in there. And he is allowing this change and this transformation. So each of these, I'm not going to say little transits, but kind of little transits, right? Like this, that come up. It's like a movement of the cog in the wheel, right? Towards that new life that will be happening. I could tell you right now, your life will not look anything like it is right now, 2 years from now. We've talked about that, right? It's going to be a little different for each of you because this is a general reading, so I don't know what's going on in your personal birth chart, but that is certainly, this is an important month, May, as far as movement in that wheel. All right. Even if it's just like making the connections, because seventh house could be making connections at work. Maybe somebody offers you a new opportunity. Maybe you're realizing that you want to do your work differently. That Mars energy in there, absolutely. I don't want you to be like, oh my gosh, my relationship. Your relationship might be completely unaffected from this, okay? Because seventh house is not only relationships, okay, my friends? So last thing I want to mention is that the sextile to Neptune in the third house. Third house is all about communication. It has to do with siblings, extended family, your neighborhood, your neighbors, very local. It's a very local energy. It's also very connected to learning something new, teaching something very fundamental. But when that Aries energy, I do have to say, especially, it's going to be working with Ceres. You might be doing some onboarding in a new position. You might be learning something new. some of you may be really heavily active, very actively seeking some sort of new employment. Um, and it will go well for you. Please be patient with that, though. We all really need to take a deep breath and be very patient right now. But yeah, those first 3 weeks can bring a lot of that as well. So just take a deep breath and try not to, because again, this opposition is happening in two angular houses for you. Houses 1, 4, 7, and 10 are angular houses. So whatever happens in those houses, we can feel pretty deeply. This is not a negative thing at all, Aquarius. It's not. You're trying to figure out who you are in this new iteration of your life. And the beginning, it's like welcome to your new life. It really has started, and I'm sure you've been feeling it, right? You feel it a brewing, right? Really revisiting and looking at how you face life and the face that you show the world. And I have to tell you, some of you may even be very motivated to get a new hairstyle, change your outfit, change your clothing style. Some of you may be interested in getting some sort of like, plastic surgery, right? Great to do that. I just would not do it like the 18th, 19th, 20th, right? I would probably do it after that. We don't want to do any surgery while Mars is opposing Neptune, okay? Especially Mars is good in the seventh house, and Leo, this is nice, nice, beautiful energy. Seventh house represents our doctors. Mars represents the tools for surgery, opposing the first house. It's not but with that Pluto energy. So we want to just wait until it's at least 14 degrees, which will be on the 19th, okay? If you're thinking about doing anything like that. That's a very common email that I received. I'm thinking about getting surgery. When is, so anytime after the 19th would be a good time. But anyway, my friends, that is what I have for you. You can join me in a couple of days when I completely impact the month of May as far as the other astrological transits. I did want to just isolate this one out because it's a pretty important one. But until then, see you next time. Bye-bye. Okay, Pisces. Pisces, you have Pluto in the 12th house. So the 12th house is very behind the scenes. And the 12th house happens to be your domicile. It's where you live. So this is going to have you doing a very deep dive into your subconscious, into spirituality, really looking at any 12th house's hidden enemies and really looking at what needs to be released. And this could be a profound time for you guys to do some awesome inner healing, confronting any sort of unconscious patterns that maybe you've been vibing that you do, but now you're going to be willing to look at these things a lot more deeply. Now, it is opposing that Mars energy in the sixth house of your health, mental, physical, emotional, your daily work environment. It's the house to be of service. It's very connected to responsibilities as well. So Mars is very brave, very courageous, but he doesn't always have a lot of agency because he's a leader, right? And leaders are ideas people. They're not the implementers. Right? And Pluto, so you have these ideas, and then Pluto is very controlling with those ideas. So the frustration could be between these two energies, sixth house, your daily work environment. So some of you may be like really looking at what it is that you do for work, and you want to kind of break into another direction. Some of you may be looking at any sort of self-sabotaging behavior that you may be practicing, right? It's the 12th house, could be any sort of addiction, any sort of self-sabotaging behavior at all. But it's also the house of dreams and creativity, and opposing Mars. There could be some frustration having to do with your creativity, wanting to be more creative, but being kind of bogged down by responsibilities, wanting to do something that is more in alignment with your joy and happiness, but feeling that you could feel anyway that you're rather held back. And because we have this Neptune energy in the second house, there could be some confusion around money. But Pluto is sextiling, which is a very, very supportive positioning. So you're able to dream about making money. You're able to imagine. You're able to be to do something that's very creative, right? But the frustration could be in getting those creative energies out there. So, for example, let's say you're an artist, getting your work out there or doing some sort of work where you're able to actually incorporate and implement your creative energies. Could be that. For those of you, a lot of Pisces, because Pisces is a sign of the nurse and the caretaker, it's the person who works in the prisons and the rehabs and all of that. Some of you may be in that space and you may be thinking, I'm not sure if I want to do this anymore. It might be time to end this, right? But with the Neptune in the second house, you might be feeling a little confused about money and am I going to be able to do that? And will I be able to make that change that I really want? But you have to know that if you're being pulled in that direction, it's something that you can't ignore, right? So Pluto in the 12th house, when it comes to like employment, those 12th house things that I just told you having to do with nursing, anything in the prison system, anything having to do with any kind of rehab, anything like that is all great. But it's very creative and it's doing anything in a behind the scenes way, in a supportive capacity, right? So some of you may be in that space of wanting to change the way that you do something behind the scenes. So you may resolve to maybe start writing something, doing something in the field of technology, but doing it like literally behind the scenes, like from home or just in a very supportive way. This could be very connected to your children as well, meaning the choices that you're making now doesn't necessarily have to be it could be children or your home, property, real estate, or your emotional security, right? These choices that you're making now, right, can be very connected to this. But because the sixth house, 12th house is a health axis, we do want to make sure that our health is being taken care of. So you absolutely do not want to let, I'm so sorry. I know a lot of people are like, stop talking about health. I'm getting a lot of people unsubscribed from my channel because I talk about health. And honestly, guys, I'm not going to stop talking about health. I'm not going to do that. I've helped bring to awareness circumstances pertaining to health situations that are just beginning in dozens of people at this point, and I'm not willing to not do that, right? Dealing with some health issues, that's just a flippant part of life. We can't let that take us down. We cannot do that, okay? So you have it, sixth house, 12th house. Again, it's the axis of health. The 12th houses represent disease and disease, and the sixth house is mental, physical, and emotional health, meaning our ability to maintain our health. So when we have an opposition, a lot of times we can have some of these situations, that end up building up. Pluto and Aquarius, like I've been saying in several of the signs, it is very commonly associated with any kind of autoimmune, some sort of out of the box thing. But it's very often able to be controlled. And sometimes it's because of some sort of self-sabotaging behavior that you might be doing that you don't even realize, right? So it could be just eating the wrong food, being exposed to something that you have as an allergy, something like that, right? It could be anything like that. But rather than guess, you want to make sure that get a clear bill of health from a medical professional, as far as your strategy, having to do with taking care of your health. Because this axis, even if everything is great, 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 you want to go and at least get bottom line so that you could do comparisons later on, as you do have Pluto in that 12th house for 20 years. So you want to have baselines of everything, right? So it's good to have that comparison baseline just so that you know where you're at with that, okay? So it may not manifest whatsoever having to do with health. As I said, this can absolutely just be you seriously thinking about making a significant change having to do with your day-to-day work environment, okay? And that any sort of stress or any sort of discomfort that you're feeling, particularly the first 3 weeks of May, that is meant to move you forward. Now, once the 18th comes into the 19th, it's going to be coming out of that 10-degree opposition. It's going to be coming out of that. And so once it's at that 14th degree, so Mars in the sixth house is excellent for exercise. It's excellent for going after a new job. It's excellent for just, figuring out how to work your responsibilities differently. So the end of the month, it's very, very supportive. And we also have Saturn changing signs the end of the month, which is going to be really interesting. Saturn going into the second house. Um, that'll be a pretty nice energy for you guys. So we will talk about that in our next video, which I'm going to put out in a few days for the full May astrology for all of the signs. But until then, Pisces, thank you so much for joining me. I hope this was helpful in some way. Until next time, guys, you guys take care. Bye-bye.